You've all heard of Save the Cat. It's literally the title of one of the best known writing craft books of all time. What it means is that in the opening pages of your novel or screenplay, you have your protagonist save a cat, since it will endear them to your readers. I mean, obviously you can't go around starting every story with a cat in peril. What about down a well? Or in a burning building? No, don't actually start your book with any cats. But the idea is that you only have a few paragraphs, maybe a page or two if your readers are feeling generous, to make them care about your character. And most people empathize with a little cat stuck in a big tree, so the person who goes out of their way to save it instantly gains likability points, so that later on in your story, when the protagonist steals money from a little old lady, your reader will still be like, you know, he did save that cat one time, so I'm cutting him some slack on this one. So that's tip number 1. Have your character act selflessly in the opening scene. Could be anything, but it should probably not be too outlandish, or else they might come off as superhuman and therefore unrelatable. Which brings me to tip number 2. Show them fail. This is usually where people say, give your character a flaw, which is good advice in theory, but unless you know how to actually work a flaw into your character's overall personality, it can come off as forced, like a detective who drinks too much, or a cheerleader who only cares about herself. Or it can actually have the opposite effect of what we're going for here, and it could make your character unlikable, especially if the flaw is introduced too early in the story and your character has no awareness of it. Because that could make your reader think that you, the author, have no awareness of it, and then they'll be like, oh, okay, I guess I'm about to spend 300 pages with a whiny protagonist. Better test my eye roll strength. So instead, I like to start a story with the protagonist striving towards a goal, but not reaching it. That accomplishes 2 things. First, it shows the reader that this goal will probably be incorporated in the main story going forward, even if it's not the main goal. But also, and more importantly, it lets the reader know that this character doesn't just sit by and let things happen to them. They are actually capable of carrying this story. And you don't have to make this initial goal be the main goal of the story. It could be anything you want, as long as it's important to the character and contributes in some way to the story, even if just thematically. Tip number 3, show them win. This tactic also runs the risk of tainting your character with superhero syndrome, so you do want to tread carefully. But if you want to set up your protagonist as particularly skilled in some area, then showing them display those skills in the opening pages can be very effective. For example, a renowned detective might open the story by solving a big case before being introduced to the main case of the story. Or in the first few pages, a scientific genius will complete some significant invention that might set off the rest of the plot, or be used in some way. We meet Indiana Jones on an adventure, being cunning and adaptable. We don't meet him in his office. Tip number 4, have your character trick someone. This is actually my favorite way to introduce a protagonist. You don't have to have them actually trick someone. That could seem kind of mean, although you can if you want to. If you want them to be cunning or intelligent without empathy. But this tip just means to show your character doing some small devious thing in the first few pages. A little mischievous. Maybe they crack jokes in class and make the teacher laugh rather than getting in trouble. Or maybe they tell a little white lie to their spouse to get out of going to the dentist. Or they sneak into school after dark, or trespass in a warehouse parking lot. Whatever it is, we all like a character who's a little bit willing to step out of line. It shows us that they're confident in themselves, or maybe it shows us that they're courageous or carefree. Whatever it is, it shows us that this character is unique, and we like that. Tip number 5. This is something that you should not do in your opening pages if you're trying to make your main character likable. It's something that I see done a lot, even in published books. Maybe it's just a pet peeve of mine. Anyway, don't start with your character being a bystander. We don't want to open a book and have our first introduction to the protagonist be watching them get pulled along by the plot. They won't instill any confidence in the reader that they can propel this story forward. So we might think we're just going to be stuck watching them stumble around doing things that they don't really care about. So we don't really want an opening scene that's like, oh, here's my brother sneaking into an art museum. I don't know how I got roped into this. I'd rather be home watching Jeopardy. Oh, it looks like we're making a mess and we'll probably get caught. Oh well, don't do that. If your characters are breaking into a museum on the first page, have it be your protagonist's idea, and let your reader know why it's important to them. Remember, in order for your audience to care about what's happening in your story, your protagonist has to care first. A bonus tip for making your characters more likable is to look up on Google what makes people more appealing than others. Like psychologically, what makes some people more charming. The way I like to do this is to just think about what qualities I am most attracted to. Not like romantically, but just like in general, when I meet a new person, what is it about them that makes me want to hang out? And for me, it's enthusiasm. So like, if I meet a new person and they're really enthusiastic about something that they love, I'm like thinking, oh hey, this person's really enthusiastic. They must be really glad to be alive. Maybe if I hang out with them, I'll be glad to be alive.